Imagine drifting alone in the open ocean. No land in sight, no ships, no radio. Just water in every direction, and the slow, silent movement of something beneath the surface. In 1973, survivors from the vessel Triton found themselves trapped in exactly that situation. What followed would become one of the most psychologically brutal survival ordeals at sea. Because surviving the ocean isn't just about food or water. It's about enduring something much harder: isolation. The Triton had not been expected to become a survival story. The voyage began like many others. Weather forecasts looked manageable. Supplies were loaded. The ocean, at first, appeared calm. But sailors know something most people don't. Calm water can be more dangerous than storms, because storms warn you. Calm seas often hide the real trouble. Somewhere far from shore, something went wrong. Mechanical failure, loss of power, communication problems. Within hours, the situation began to change from inconvenience to danger. When a vessel loses power offshore, the ocean takes control. Wind decides where you go. Currents decide how far you drift. And sometimes, neither wind nor current shows up at all. The Triton survivors soon realized something terrifying. The boat wasn't moving. The wind had died. The water around them became flat, perfectly still. Sailors call this condition dead calm. From a distance, it looks peaceful. But at sea, dead calm can become a trap. Without wind, sails hang useless. Without power, engines can't push the vessel forward. And without movement, you are no longer navigating. You are drifting. The first night at sea is usually filled with adrenaline. People are alert. Everyone believes rescue will arrive soon. But experienced survivors know something different. The real psychological danger comes later. They call it the second night, because the second night is when reality begins to settle in. The Triton survivors watched the sun disappear over an endless horizon. Darkness fell across the water. The ocean became black, and with darkness came a new fear. Movement beneath the raft. At first it was only shadows. Long shapes gliding through the water, circling slowly. Sharks. Sharks are drawn to vibration and distress. A drifting raft in open water can attract curious predators from miles away. And in the quiet of night, every movement becomes magnified. A splash, a bump against the raft, a fin cutting the surface. Sleep becomes impossible. Every sound means danger. Every shadow might be teeth. But sharks weren't the only threat. The greater danger was psychological. Because when a human mind realizes it may be trapped for days, something begins to change. Hope begins to fade. Fear turns into exhaustion. And exhaustion becomes mistakes. Survival experts often say the ocean rarely kills people quickly. Instead, it waits. It waits for dehydration, for panic, for poor decisions made under stress. The Triton survivors now faced a slow battle against time. Days passed. The sun burned relentlessly during daylight hours. Without shade, heat exhaustion becomes a constant enemy. Salt water dries the skin. Lips crack. Eyes struggle to stay open against the glare of endless water. Night offered little relief. Temperatures dropped. The ocean turned cold. And sharks continued their silent patrol beneath the raft. Every survivor eventually reaches a moment where their mind asks a dangerous question. How long can this last? The answer, unfortunately, can be longer than anyone expects. The Triton survivors drifted day after day. Storms sometimes appeared in the distance but never reached them. Ships passed far beyond the horizon. Each sunrise brought hope. Each sunset brought uncertainty. But perhaps the most terrifying part of survival at sea isn't the sharks. It isn't the hunger. It isn't even the thirst. It's the silence. The silence of the ocean. No engines. No voices. No rescue aircraft overhead. Just the sound of water moving against the raft. And the realization that the ocean doesn't care how long you survive. Because the ocean doesn't hunt you. It simply waits. For the Triton survivors, survival became a routine of endurance. Protect energy. Share supplies. Stay calm. Watch the horizon. And most importantly, don't fall into the water. Because beneath that raft, the shadows never left. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into nearly 2 months. Few people ever experience such prolonged isolation. But the human mind can endure extraordinary pressure. Eventually, rescue would come. But not before the Triton survivors experienced one of the longest drifting ordeals recorded at sea. Their story became a reminder of something sailors have understood for generations. Storms may look terrifying, but sometimes the most dangerous ocean is the one that appears perfectly calm. Because when the wind disappears and the water turns to glass, the ocean is no longer moving you anywhere. And survival becomes a waiting game against one of the most powerful forces on Earth: time. The survivors' minds began to fracture under the relentless pressure of their situation. With each passing day, conversations dwindled, replaced by long stretches of silence filled only with the sound of waves slapping gently against their makeshift raft. Anxiety gripped them, gnawing at their spirits as each moment stretched into eternity, making them question everything, including their resolve. They tried to distract themselves, recounting stories from their pasts or discussing the dreams they had for the future, but the weight of despair settled heavily over them like a shroud. Each night, as stars dotted the sky, served as a painful reminder of both the beauty and harshness of the vast ocean, their prison and potential grave. The sun became a relentless tyrant, pounding down on them without mercy, leading to dehydration and hallucinations. As thirst began to overpower reason, they found themselves sharing scant sips of precious water, navigating the delicate balance between survival and despair. Days blurred together, turning into a monotonous cycle of heat and sleepless nights. They could feel their bodies wilting, each passing moment amplifying their vulnerability against the vastness that surrounded them. Every shadow across the water was a flicker of fear, yet the glimmers of hope refused to die completely, whispering the promise of rescue. The survivors were haunted not just by their physical suffering, but by the constant grip of despair that threatened to consume them. They realized that the worst part of their ordeal was not the hunger, or even the ever-present danger lurking beneath the surface, but rather the feeling of being utterly invisible to the world. Every glimmering wave became a whisper of false hope, teasing them with the promise of rescue that felt just out of reach. They began to lose track of time, days turning into indistinguishable stretches of daylight and darkness. Conversations became less frequent, replaced by fragmented thoughts that hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fears. One survivor, eager to keep the spirit alive, suggested they keep a record of their experience, tracing letters in the sand with sticks as they floated. It became an act of defiance against the vast emptiness surrounding them, a small assertion of their existence in a world that seemed to have forgotten them. But as the sun sank low on the horizon again, their laughter faded into the night, overshadowed by the weight of solitude that enveloped them deeper than the water. In the midst of their collective suffering, one survivor named Mark began to formulate a plan, driven by the desperation clinging to their hearts. He gathered the others around him, steeling himself to share a flicker of determination against despair. "We need to ration our remaining supplies more wisely," he urged, voice trembling but resolute. "If we can hold on a little longer, we might just make it." The group responded with a mix of nods and silent agreement, clinging to the glimmer of hope ignited by Mark's words. They divided their dwindling food and water with painstaking care, creating a strict schedule that would prolong their lives, even slightly. As their spirits rose ever so slightly, they began sharing stories again, igniting memories of loved ones at home. Each tale became a lifeline, connecting them back to the world outside the endless blue. At that moment, isolation began to be slightly less suffocating, as they fought together against the looming shadow of despair. The relentless march of time wore on, leaving the survivors in a state of desolation marked by both external and internal battles. Days faded into one another, shifting like the tide and stretching their patience to breaking points. Mark's efforts to instill a sense of unity brought brief moments of hope. However, cracks in their resolve began to surface once more. Fatigue clouded their minds, and whispers of a fading will echoed among them as night fell. Each survivor wrestled with their individual fears, thoughts swirling like the currents around them. They began to understand that survival was not simply about the physical struggle, but a monumental test of their mental fortitude. Every passing hour threatened to shatter the fragile bond they had formed, drawing them closer to an abyss of despair. Outside their raft, the dark water remained calm, an unsettling reminder of their isolation. Yet it was the silence of their companionship that became the most deafening noise of all. As the weight of yet another night pressed down on them, Mark gathered the group once more. "We have to stay focused," he reminded them, his voice but a whisper against the hum of calm water. "Let's remember who we are." Each survivor nodded, summoning strength from their shared humanity, a silent pledge to hold on to their identity amidst the chaos of survival. The night was still, but within their small circle a flicker of resilience sparked. They weren't just drifting in the ocean, but fighting together against the relentless tide of despair. Collectively, they breathed in the cool air, each exhale becoming a small act of defiance, a testament to their unwillingness to be merely swept away by fate. United in purpose, they strived to endure the trials before them. As the shadows lengthened with the arrival of evening, a sense of unease settled over the survivors once more. They glanced into the inky depths below them, feeling the weight of uncertainty. Every splash reminded them that the ocean was alive. They were not alone, and though isolation surrounded them, danger lurked just beneath the surface. As the weeks dragged on, the promise of rescue began to feel like an unattainable dream, a distant memory floating just out of reach. Their bodies weakened, but their spirits flickered with the remnants of hope, a fragile flame sustaining them through each endless night. Yet beneath that fragile hope lingered a haunting thought. In the vastness of the ocean, how long could they truly survive? Unbeknownst to the survivors, their ordeal had not gone unnoticed. Far from their drifting raft, a nearby vessel had picked up the faintest signal, a ghostly echo of distress. The crew, accustomed to sailing treacherous waters, had resolved to investigate. As they rallied their resources and charted a course towards the coordinates, the survivors continued their daily battle, unaware that help was now a flicker of hope on the horizon. The application of every ounce of strength was going to be crucial for those adrift. With the sun beat down mercilessly, they pushed back against exhaustion, praying for a sign. Each passing hour felt like an eternity, yet with the universe working in their favor, destiny was finally set to intervene. Gradually, very slowly, a glimmer of hope emerged, buoyed by the prospect of rescue. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Mark stood at the edge of the raft, scanning the surface of the water. His heart thumped loudly in his chest, fueled by a mixture of hope and dread, as an inexplicable instinct urged him to look beyond the relentless waves. "Stay focused, everyone!" he called out, ensuring his voice remained steady despite the turmoil inside. "We've endured so much. We can't let our spirits wane now." Each survivor turned their gaze toward Mark, pulling on the collective thread of resilience that had woven itself through their ongoing struggle. Encouraged, they exchanged determined nods, clinging to one another's presence as the final light of day faded into encroaching darkness. Just as night enveloped them, a distant sound broke the oppressive silence. A faint hum, almost imperceptible, but growing stronger with each passing moment. The survivors exchanged anxious glances, their hearts pounding as the melodic sound grew clearer. Mark's eyes widened, the rhythm resonating like a beacon through their shared silence. "Do you hear that?" he whispered urgently, as if raising his voice might shatter the fragile illusion. One by one, they strained their ears, slowly recognizing the unmistakable roar of an engine. In that moment, the oppressive weight of hopelessness lifted just slightly, igniting a spark of anticipation that ignited their flickering spirits. Hope surged through them, defeating despair for the first time in weeks. They stood together, eyes scanning the horizon where the sound emerged, heartbeats synchronized in a collective yearning for salvation. As the vessel drew nearer, the shimmering outline transformed from a mere flicker of sound to a life-saving entity of strength and hope. Mark knelt down, cupping water in his hands and splashing it on his face, while urging the others to prepare themselves. They had fought for survival long enough, and now they had to be ready to fight for their lives on the brink of rescue. "Keep shouting. Make sure they see us," he called, extinguishing whispers of vulnerability as a renewed energy surged through their weary bodies. Each survivor joined in, frantically waving their arms, an army of defiance against the vast ocean. Their voices mingled, rising above the water's gentle lapping, rekindling strength through sheer numbers as they called out for help, a final desperate bid against the encroaching dark. As the distant ship became more defined on the horizon, their hearts raced, believing that after weeks of drifting into despair, their battle was finally nearing resolution. Yet each beat echoed the lingering fear. What if it was an illusion, a hope that would slip away? Mark grasped the moment, trusting that they had held on long enough. Together, they drew strength from the belief that someone had finally come for them. But as the vessel drew closer, a chilling realization washed over Mark. What if they weren't ready for rescue? Their ordeal had changed them, sculpting each survivor into shadows of who they once were. They had learned to rely on one another, their bonds forged in the crucible of despair. Yet, as the engine's roar filled the air, a wave of doubt crested over him. Would the crew on the ship understand their struggle? Would they see the scars that had formed, both visible and hidden? As the light of the approaching vessel illuminated the surrounding water, a sense of urgency ignited within the group. "We must show them we're here," Mark shouted, infusing his voice with conviction, shaking off his uncertainties. He gestured for the others to gather string and remnants from their supplies, crafting makeshift flags to attract attention. The survivors quickly set to work, their hands trembling with determination as they unleashed their creativity amidst the debris that had once been the comforts of their lives. They tied together scraps of fabric and plastic, fervently waving their improvised signals, their excitement mingling with the nagging fear that hope could still slip away. As the vessel came into focus, cloaked in the glow of twilight, the survivors' voices rose in a heartfelt chorus, echoing their pleas for help across the looming ocean. The combined energy of their shouts pierced through the silence, chasing away the remnant shadows that had clung to them for weeks. It felt like standing at the precipice of hope, teetering between despair and rescue, as their collective will surged outward into the night. Mark felt his heart race again, a rhythm reaffirming their fight for life as they strove to bridge the distance between their lost selves and what lay ahead. The ship, now unmistakably within reach, pulsed with life, a beacon amid their vast desolation. Crew members rushed about, their figures moving with purpose, a contrast to the heavy stillness of the survivors' raft. Mark's eyes locked onto the nearest silhouette, a figure peering intently at their frantic gestures. "They see us! Keep waving!" he yelled, fervent disbelief mixing with exhilaration. For every second that passed, hope flourished, each heartbeat harmonizing with the distant, looming promise of safety. The vibrant energy on the approaching vessel crackled in the air, invigorating everyone. Suddenly, they spotted a lifebuoy being lowered, a lifeline flying through the night, bridging the gap between their suffering and salvation. Mark's heart leaped at the sight. This was the moment they had dreamed of, the end of their grueling isolation, yet the weight of their journey still lingered like phantom chains. As the buoy splashed into the water, he felt compelled to speak the words they had all held deep within. "We're going home!" he shouted, a declaration of victory, of rebirth, as they envisioned the embrace of loved ones far away. Laughter erupted amidst the tears rolling down their sunburnt cheeks. At that instant, the survivors transformed from lost souls into warriors of resilience, unified in hope and the collective power of survival. As the waves gently rocked their raft, they reinforced their bonds, not only as individuals, but as a courageous, singular force that had endured the unforgiving vastness of the sea. With newfound strength, the survivors scrambled to secure the lifebuoy, their hearts pounding with a mix of joy and disbelief. Mark took the lead, guiding the others as they steadied the rope, their fingers trembling with exhilaration and relief. "Pull it in! We're almost there!" he shouted, adrenaline coursing through his veins. Each tug on the line felt monumental, the prospect of rescue pulling them out of the shadows of despair and into the light of hope. They worked together, hands gripping firmly as a solid bond forged through weeks of hardship united them in that crucial moment, echoing the determination that had carried them thus far. As the lifebuoy drew closer, Mark's voice rang out like a clarion call, urging everyone to dig deeper, to summon the last remnants of their strength. "This is it! We fight for every inch!" Each survivor echoed his fervor, their hands moving with renewed purpose as they pulled the buoy toward their raft. With every heartbeat, they felt the distance between despair and salvation shrink, the sight of the vessel intensifying their determination. The loom ship loomed larger, and through their collective efforts, the lifeline emerged from the sea, one hand at a time, symbolizing a bridge between their harrowing ordeal and the safety they craved. With the lifebuoy now secured, hope bloomed like a fragile flower in the face of adversity, revitalizing the survivors as they began to lift themselves toward a new dawn. "Hold tight!" Mark shouted, his voice charged with a mix of urgency and elation as he finally steadied his footing on the edge of the raft. The crew aboard the vessel cheered, their energy surging through the air like electricity, intensifying the fire of determination that burned within the survivors. One by one, their hands grasped the rope, pulling with every ounce of strength they could muster, hearts racing as they truly felt the embrace of life beyond the water. Amid the tumult, laughter erupted, the sound carrying over the waves, blending with the shouts of the sailors above. Each survivor fought against the remnants of despair, now mere shadows woven into their journey as the buoy began to rise above the surface. "We will make it! Together!" Mark proclaimed, and those words resonated, igniting a renewed spirit within each weary soul. The distance that had felt insurmountable only hours before now appeared conquerable. The lifebelt embodied a tangible promise, transforming their long drift into a tale of tenacity and hope. With a synchronized effort, the survivors pulled themselves closer to the lifebuoy, every tug intertwining their destinies like the strands of a shared memory. "Just a little more," Mark encouraged, feeling the electrifying pulse of hope as they neared their salvation. The crew above shouted instructions, their voices mingling with the sound of rushing waves, guiding the weary hearts to emerge from the depths of despair. Exhaustion clouded their vision, yet determination burned brightly as they raised their eyes towards the rescue vessel, now looming larger and more tangible than ever before. Each hand grasping the rope represented a renewed promise, echoing the fierce spirit of survival that had carried them through the darkest nights. As the buoy finally breached the surface of the water, laughter rang out amidst tears, a cascade of emotions pouring from their hearts, a cathartic release of everything they had endured. "Together," they chanted, inching ever closer, glimmers of camaraderie illuminating the vastness of the ocean that threatened to swallow them whole. The last vestiges of their isolation were slipping away, replaced by the exhilarating sensation of unity forged through unimaginable trials. As the crew above hoisted them into the light, their battle against despair transformed, their voices now harmonized in triumph, celebrating not just survival, but the strength found in resilience. As Mark and the others clung desperately to the buoy, the world around them began to shift. With seasoned hands, the crew aboard the vessel lowered ropes, their faces igniting with urgency as they pulled the survivors upward, drawing them away from the clutches of the ocean. Each survivor felt the intoxicating swell of hope blend with disbelief. The journey that had become a haunting memory was now fading into a past filled with pain, but also resilience. One by one, they were lifted from the raft, each ascent a step closer to safety and familiarity. As they reached the deck, the salty air greeted them like a long-lost friend, whispering promises of second chances and new beginnings. In that moment, the survivors shared a collective breath, a gasp of relief blending with the roar of the ocean, and applause celebrating their remarkable endurance. As they stood on the deck, taking in the reality of their rescue, the crew quickly surrounded them, offering water, blankets, and comforting words. Mark felt the warmth of a team member's hand grip his shoulder, grounding him after the whirlwind of emotions. "You're safe now," a sailor said, his eyes filled with genuine concern. "We thought we'd lost you." That simple reassurance washed over the survivors like a cleansing tide as laughter and tears mingled, an emotional release surfacing through the shared relief. Each face reflected both the physical exhaustion from their ordeal and the burgeoning sense of safety. They had arrived, not just at the deck of a ship, but at a horizon of newfound hope, forever bound by the ocean's lessons of resilience and survival. As they acclimated to the newfound safety aboard the vessel, the survivors exchanged glances, their expressions revealing a powerful mix of disbelief and gratitude. Mark, finding his voice amidst the cacophony of relief, turned to his fellow mates. "We made it! We fought together!" The bond they had forged in the harrowing depths of despair now shimmered brightly, illuminating the strength of their shared journey. One survivor, teary-eyed but smiling, leaned into Mark, replying, "Together, we survived the unthinkable." Laughter broke out again, filling the air with warmth, washing away the haunting echoes of isolation that had gripped them for so long. The ship's crew rallied around, ensuring every survivor was attended to, offering hope in all forms. As they looked toward the horizon, a profound understanding settled in their hearts. The ocean may have tested their limits, but together they had triumphed against time and despair. "We did it," Mark declared, a smile breaking through the exhaustion on his face. "We really did it." The ocean has an uncanny ability to test the limits of human endurance, but from despair blooms resilience. The story of the Triton survivors stands as a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity. They faced the depths of isolation, yet together they emerged victorious, a beacon of hope shimmering against the vast, unforgiving sea.